Great, so very warm welcome. Extra warm welcome if it's your first time here. Yeah. So today we're going to be looking at karma. Just a show of hands, if you've heard of the word karma, put your hand in the air. Okay, is that everyone? Yeah, it's everyone, yeah? So karma's a word that's landed in our culture over the past few decades. And well, there's a lot to this word, yeah? Does anyone actually know, anyone got any ideas about what karma might actually mean? I mean, it doesn't matter, don't worry, you can't get it right or wrong, it's just to kind of warm me up and get rid of my own nerves. Yeah, so who knows what karma might be? Yes? Sorry? Action. That's it, that's the end of the discussion. So, yeah, so karma literally means action, yeah? Karma means action, but today we're mainly concerned with what you could call the law of karma, yeah? So karma means action, and then there's the law of karma, yeah? So I thought we'd look at it from a few different angles. Firstly, by looking at where this law of karma comes from, yeah? In order to do that, we have to look at the Buddha's enlightenment itself, yeah? And hopefully we'll see that this law of karma is what you could say an application of a universal principle. Don't worry, we'll get there, yeah? Then I thought we'd look at why the Buddha actually taught this law of karma. Yeah, why was it so important, and why was it kind of so central in his teachings, yeah? And then thirdly, I thought we'd have a look at how karma applies to our everyday lives in the here and now, yeah? How well, in a way you could say karma is the key to our lives. That's a big statement, but it's actually true, yeah? So you can use karma to shape your life, which we'll have a look at, yeah? But before that, very briefly, I thought we'd have a look at what karma is not, yeah? So karma is not everything, yeah? So what do I mean by that? I mean, not everything that happens to you is a result of your karma, yeah? There's a bit of a kind of common misunderstanding about karma itself, and you hear people that may be trying to be good Buddhists, and they're like, yeah, it's their karma, everything's karma, it's all karma. Actually, that's not true, not according to Buddhism at least, yeah? There's many different layers of reality, and there's all kinds of things going on in our life, in our universe, and karma's one of these layers, yeah? Karma's one of the laws that governs the universe, that applies to us. So practically speaking, karma is incredibly important, but karma's not everything, yeah? I had a bit of a bad example, excuse me, but I thought, I don't even know if this has happened, but say a pigeon's flying in the sky, yeah, and then it dies, and it falls down and lands on your head when you leave this class today and kills you somehow. Is that your karma? Yeah, no, probably not. Well, I hope not. Otherwise we live in a pretty strange universe, yeah? So just as an example of what karma's not, just because a pigeon dies and lands on your head and kills you, probably not because of your karma, yeah? Thank you, good. I mean, in a more, well, I don't know about a more serious way, but how it can go wrong. I had a friend of mine who was somewhere in Southeast Asia. I can't remember exactly where she was, but she was visiting a hospital, and it was an accident and emergency department, and it was extremely busy and very unlike maybe it is in Berlin, like it's chaos, yeah? And she was saying, she was talking to some of the doctors, and they needed a break, yeah? They obviously needed a break, so they'd have a break, but there'd still be people coming in that had motorbike accidents or shootings or some heart attacks, something, people coming in, but they couldn't keep going. So she said a few of them would say it's their karma, yeah? They came when I was having a break, and it's their karma. I don't know what to make of that, but I just thought it was interesting, yeah? They obviously under-resourced and they need a break, but it's interesting how this whole concept of karma got drawn into the justification of that. Anyway, that's by the by. We'll look at that more in detail in a bit later. Yeah, so what do we mean by karma, yeah, and where it comes from? So in order to kind of understand that, you have to take a step back and look at the Buddha's enlightenment itself, which we did a couple of weeks ago, yeah? And I won't really go into it, but he was on a long quest yeah, looking for freedom, essentially, liberation from suffering, yeah. And according to the Buddha, he found liberation from suffering, not only liberation from suffering, but kind of, well, you could call it bliss, freedom, all these amazing things, yeah. Yeah, in a way, he'd found the heart of life, you could say, yeah, and he was sitting in the heart of life, in the heart of reality. And according to tradition, according to the Buddha, that experience is beyond words, yeah. It's a kind of I don't know about non-dualistic, but words are by their nature dualistic. There's this, there's that. The whole conceptual framework, he said, it's beyond all that, yeah. And also, you couldn't even really say if enlightenment itself is an experience, because it's a complete transformation. So it's an experience in the sense of it's just on. It wasn't like a big experience. It's like it was a complete transformation of consciousness, which didn't change. It was like he was liberated in a final sense, yeah. So that's what you can't say. Again, I was talking about this a couple of weeks ago. What you can say is he taught about his experience. He described his experience as discovering, it's very unsexy, I'm afraid, so it might just go over your head, you know, but it did over mine, but he discovered what you could call conditioned co-production. Oh God, it's a bit depressing. Or dependent origination, praticca samutpada, yeah, these words don't really help us much, but what he discovered was basically everything, literally everything, arises and ceases dependent on conditions, yeah, which, does that make sense? Yeah, that makes sense, right? And that was an experience for him, yeah? Not just an idea, it was an experience. So we have Lalitaratna's TikTok dance, which hopefully will take over the internet, yeah, at some point, and everyone will be sharing this. Maybe you'll get some money out of it as well. But yeah, so you have this very simple formula, this being, that becomes, on the arising of this, that arises. This not being, that does not become. On the ceasing of this, that ceases. Yeah? Does that make sense? Yeah, so everything has something as a basis. Not something, many things as a basis, yeah? And if those things are all there, then the likelihood is this thing will arise, like you, whoever you are. There's a lot of conditions that go back and back and back, and to the side as well, that are affecting you now, and historically that have given rise to you, whatever you are. Yeah? So that's his central realization in the way of, if you want to use a formula as such, this being, that becomes, yeah? So another question, hands up if you like eating croissants. Oh yeah, well, I thought there'd be more people that would like that. But pastries, everyone likes pastries. Ice cream, yeah? Good, so everyone likes having croissants, yeah? Let's stay with croissants, yeah? So what are the, and not just croissants, what are the conditions that need to be in order, need to be there for you to eat a croissant and enjoy it? Rain? Yeah, okay, so one condition for eating a croissant and enjoying it is rain. Mm-hmm. Yeah, say more?
To make the wheat grow.
Okay, so the wheat growing, where's the wheat coming from?
The farmer.
The wheat's coming from the farmer. Okay, yeah?
Well, that's one condition.
That's a condition, that's true.
Harvest the wheat.
He harvests the wheat,
You
yeah.
need dirt, you need
Dirt.
you need sunlight.
Sunlight.
You need a shot.
And where does sunlight come from?
Not from God.
Not from God.
From the sun.
And what's going on in the sun?
The universe.
No, but what's going on in the sun?
Oh, now it's getting too sun.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Nuclear fission.
Yeah. Nuclear fission. Yeah. So that's going on, and then you've got the wheat, and you've got water, like you say.
It's cut.
And what about you? Because you're part of the experience.
I have a craving.
You got a craving. Yeah.
Croissant.
Yeah, and you've got taste buds. Yeah.
Senses.
Okay, so all I was trying to do there is say, what we take as a simple experience of eating a croissant, there's an infinite array of conditions that need to be there in order for that to happen. Yeah? I don't know, I mean, I started enjoying listening to music again recently. I walk around with my headphones, I was listening to jungle, don't ask anyway, and I was really enjoying it, but then I was listening to a lot of it, and then I noticed, I'm not enjoying it now. So for me to enjoy the music while I'm walking, I had to be in a certain state of mind. I had to kind of be probably, I don't know, fairly receptive and clean palate in my ears. And so it's all, any experience is based on conditions, yeah? Which would, it'd be impossible to go through, even with a simple thing like eating a croissant. Yeah? You need a whole universe, you need your whole existence, history, time, the whole thing, yeah? And that's all good. But the Buddha's enlightenment, he wasn't really thinking about that. It's not like he was sitting there like us, like, there's a tree, and then went through a whole load of conditions. It was more of a direct experience, yeah? And that experience of seeing everything as conditional liberated him, yeah? So it's important to know this in a way. It didn't come out of a theory or an idea, yeah? It's kind of, it might sound a bit like a fine-tuning, a fine point, but when the Buddha's talking to us about praticca samutpada or conditioned co-production, he's not talking from a philosophical perspective, yeah, or as a theory or an idea. He's trying to express his direct experience, yeah, which is a huge difference, yeah. And that his expression can help us towards that same liberation, that same experience, yeah. So it's a direct perception that goes beyond words, and there's an early Buddhist text, a sutta, that kind of makes this point, yeah? So the Buddha had an assistant, yeah? He had assistants, a bit like a PR, whatever you call it, whatever it's called, personal assistant, yeah? Someone to help him, PA, that's it. And because people want to talk to him, yeah? And his most famous assistant was called Ananda, yeah? Ananda's great. And Ananda had like an extraordinary memory. He could remember all the Buddha's teachings. To us that might sound like impossible, but actually it's more like we've lost our memory. In the kind of ancient times, especially in the Buddha's time, there was no written word really, yeah? Everything was dependent on people's memories, and it seems people had extraordinary memories, yeah? And Ananda remembered a lot of what the Buddha said, so we can be very grateful to Ananda, yeah? So there's a sutta called the Maha Nidana Sutta. Those of you who are familiar with the Nidana chain, don't worry if you're not. Yeah, it means link, so this sutta. So I'll just read it, yeah? And it's to do with this whole business of understanding dependent origination, yeah? Conditionality. Then the Venerable Ananda approached the Blessed One, and, on arrival, having bowed down to the Blessed One, sat to one side. As he was sitting there, he said to the Blessed One, "It is amazing, Lord. It is astounding how deep this dependent co-arising is and how deep its appearance, and yet to me it seems as clear can be." Yeah? So he's understood it, yeah? Which is pretty amazing. I mean, that's our response. Oh, hopefully. I mean, I don't know if anything I've said has made any sense. That's probably more down to my lack of communication skills, but hopefully we've got some understanding, like the croissant, yeah? It kind of comes out of the croissant experience. Sounds like a band, but anyway, not a good band, but anyway, you've got the croissant experience, yeah? We kind of get that, yeah? So we can understand it, but then what does the Buddha say to Ananda after Ananda says, yeah, it's deep, and I kind of get it, yeah? Say not so, Ananda, say not so. Poor Ananda, anyway, say not so. Deep is this dependent co-arising, and deep its appearance. It is because of not understanding and not penetrating into this Dharma, this truth, that this generation is like a tangled and knotted ball of string, like matted rushes and reeds, and does not go beyond transmigration, beyond the plains of deprivation, woe, and bad destinations. So, poor old Ananda, this keeps happening to Ananda in the Buddhist scriptures. It's a bit unfair. I think they use him as like a fool guy, you know. But he thought, yeah, I get it, yeah, and it's really deep, but I think I understand. And the Buddha's like, no, you haven't understood anything. He's like, you know, the Buddha's making the point that, yeah, you can have the idea of praticca samutpada, of dependent origination, everything's conditional, but the experience is something completely different, yeah? So it's just worth having that in mind. The Buddha said it's beyond words, beyond reasoning, yeah? But let's go back to the world of words. So, yeah, the Buddha saw everything as conditioned, literally everything, yeah? So the sunlight coming through here, there's conditions for that, yeah? There's a whole load of reasons that that's coming in, yeah? The fact that we're sitting on the floor, Yeah, we're not all floating off into space, thankfully. There's conditions for that we label, I guess, gravity, so something like that. Yeah, our stomachs, they're digesting food. Yeah, that's not happening by itself. There's a whole load of complex interlinking conditions for that. The way our bodies are, shape of our bodies, the way our bodies do their thing. Probably the most, in this point, the most important one, our mental states. Yeah, the kind of thoughts you're thinking right now. You might be thinking, God, who is this guy? What's he talking about? Or you might be thinking, oh, this is really interesting. Or whatever you're thinking and feeling, it's all conditioned. Yeah, that is super important according to Buddhism. Yeah, so your current mood, your worries, yeah, they're conditional. Your skills, talents, this building, bricks, your clothes, the whole thing is there because of a huge web of other things that have given rise to that thing. Yeah, a type of music you like. Yeah. Yeah, why do you like that music? I thought, God, there's a whole history behind the fact that you actually like this music, a whole journey throughout history that has given rise to that, yeah? Your dreams, the sense of who you are, you know, that's conditioned. Your sense of being independent and having an independent I, that's conditioned as well, yeah? So it all comes from conditions, yeah? The Buddha's saying everything in existence comes out of conditions, yeah, from the smallest to the greatest, yeah. Nothing exists in isolation. I'll just keep banging the point home because I need to hear it. Nothing exists in isolation. There's causes for everything, yeah. And this was kind of formulated a few centuries after the Buddha. And I bring this up because this is the point I want to get to of where karma comes from, yeah. It's quite a helpful way to look at this. So after the Buddha, a few centuries later, there's a whole school of Buddhism that took this teaching that everything's conditioned and kind of quite neatly split existence into 5 categories, yeah, called the 5 niyamas, yeah, or the 5 orders of conditionality. Yeah, they're not hard science. I mean, it'd be pretty obvious when you look at them. They're not hard science. They're just a method of looking at our actual experience and breaking it down. Yeah. They're expressions of the Buddha's central teaching. Yeah? So they said, on one level, you have what's called the utu niyama, yeah? Which is translated as the physical inorganic. Yeah? The physical inorganic, things like gravity, electricity, sunlight, space. Yeah? So that's the utu niyama, yeah? One level. Then above that, you have what's called the bija niyama, yeah? Which is the physical organic. Yeah? So like you. Yeah? Biology, plants, yeah? So you have the physical organic. The third level they had was called the mano niyama, yeah? Which is basically consciousness. It could be a rudimentary form of consciousness, yeah? Like a animal consciousness, but it's consciousness, perception, yeah? So you've got like the physical inorganic, organic, perception, and then the fourth one, which we're interested in today, is they say there's another layer of conditionality called the karma niyama, yeah? Which is interesting. So it makes the point that karma is just one part of our experience. It's not the whole, not everything that happens to us is due to this layer of reality, yeah? And that layer, they say, if there's conditions that give rise to self-reflective consciousnesses like ours, yeah? Human consciousness, a consciousness that is aware that it's aware, and then aware that it's aware, that's aware, yeah? Human consciousness, if you have that level if you have that in existence, then the law of karma comes into existence as well. You can't escape that, yeah? So once you have a self-reflective consciousness, according to Buddhism, according to the Buddha, you then have a natural law, like gravity, called the law of karma, yeah? Which hopefully we'll get into a bit. Yeah, so it's just one manifestation of this deeper truth that everything is based on conditions. But for us, practically speaking, it's probably the most important one. Yeah, it's the most important condition. Yeah, I should say the fifth layer is called the Dharma niyama. Not very easy to talk about. Yeah, because it's it transcends what you might call conditioned existence. So I don't want to get too smart with it, but it kind of comes to the limits of language. But basically, if you have all these conditions in place, like Okay, maybe I'll just keep it simple and refer to my own experience. Not that I've had many, but so I was on retreat about 13 years ago, and I've been meditating for a fair number of years before that. But I was on this retreat, and it was a large retreat. There were 70 guys there. Probably I would say 60 or 70% of them were order members, i.e. people that had committed themselves to Buddhism fully, yeah. We were meditating together, and so all the conditions were in order, yeah? You could say we've been working with karma, we've all been trying to do the same practices, being ethical, watching what kind of mind states we're in. We're in this room, this big shrine room, meditating, and then something came into my experience that I thought, oh, it was almost like, oh, this is real. It was a shock to me, yeah, that there's a whole nother layer of reality, you could say, that you can step into, or it steps into you, and it's real. And just because most of the time we're not in touch with it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And just that brief glimpse of it changed my whole life. I don't want to sound like some evangelical Buddhist, but that's the truth, yeah? At least in my experience, that's what happened to me. It was like, it was another order of reality, yeah, which exists. That'll do, good. But today we're interested in karma, yeah? So, the law of karma, yeah? So, according to Buddhism, I just say all this as a bit of background to help us try and understand that according to the Buddha, the law of karma is a natural law, yeah? It's a natural law. Like I said, when you have, it's like gravity, yeah? It's just a law. You can believe in gravity or not believe in gravity. It doesn't make any difference. If you go up on the roof and test it, you'll find out if gravity's real or not, yeah? And it's the same with karma, yeah? You don't have to believe it. You can test it, yeah? I mean, we will get into it in a minute, but if you go around being horrible to people consistently, you can just see what happens, yeah? If you go around being kind to people consistently, you can see what happens, yeah? I don't want to jump the gun, but it's super important, yeah? So if you have a self-reflective consciousness like us, you have the law of karma, yeah? And in a way, we need to understand the law of karma in order to work with it, yeah? So how you understand the law of karma in a certain sense is really simple, yeah? If you have enough awareness to look at your behaviors and the results of your behaviors, you're already working with the law of karma, yeah? So, in a way, what we call ethics, yeah, which you could call a system of behavior, is how you work with the law of karma, yeah? So, these ethics, they're simply guidelines for how to work with the law of karma for your own benefit, yeah, and other people's benefit as well, yeah? So, does that make sense? Yeah, good, okay. So again, the law of karma is a natural law, yeah? So the Buddha distinguished between two types of law, yeah? One, I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly, was Pakati Sila, which means natural morality, yeah? Based on what you might call human psychology itself, yeah? That's like the first law, it's a natural law. The second law, I think it's called Panati Sila, yeah? Which is conventional morality, yeah? Conventional morality, customs, opinions, which change from place to place, and they change from time to time, yeah? So the first one is just based on the way the human consciousness operates, yeah? Just without, if you strip everything back, you have a natural morality, it seems, yeah? The second one is conventional, yeah? So, well, I don't know, in 21st century Berlin, forget other places in the world, we have all kinds of ideas about life, we have all kinds of opinions about things, that in 500 years, people will look at us here and go, wow, I can't believe they thought this, or they thought that. Ideas that we hold dearly, that, by the way, that we think are the truth and the way things should be, our descendants will look back on us and go, wow, God, they really believed that, didn't they, about this and about that, and yeah? And then probably 1,000 years from them, there'll be a load of people looking back on them, saying, so that's conventional morality in a way. Things change, what's acceptable, what's not acceptable, yeah? Or what's real, what's not real. So karma, the law of karma, only applies to this first level, this natural morality, yeah? So, is that clear? Yeah? Yeah, good. Mm. Yeah. So, why did the Buddha teach the law of karma? Yeah. I mean, it's good to work with reality and understand reality and what's going on, but why teach the law of karma so strongly? Any ideas? Yes, thank you, Rob. So the Buddha taught the law of karma to help us free ourselves from suffering, yeah? The Buddha teaching us about the law of karma is what you could call a great act of compassion, yeah? It's his act of compassion, yeah? Again, all things arise in conditions. We saw this a few weeks ago. And he said, for us, when you have a human mind and you want to free it from suffering, yeah? We all suffer time to time, maybe a lot, some people more than others, some people less, but we all suffer, yeah? And he found the conditions, right? The reasons why we suffer. It's not random, it's not kind of accidental, yeah? He discovered that actually there's conditions for the reason why we suffer and the reason why we can be happy, yeah? And they're seeds, yeah? So, very simply, the Buddha said, the general arising of suffering is the fruit of particular actions, yeah? And those particular actions are basically greedy, craving, neurotic craving, hatred, and what you might call deep delusion, yeah? If you have those kind of thoughts a lot and you act from them a lot, then the result, the fruit, will be your suffering, yeah? It's very clear. Not easy, but clear, yeah? That simple? That's clear, yeah? So, but he said much more importantly is the conditions if you want to be happy. If you want to be happy, then your behavior is the opposite, yeah? You can be generous, yeah? Generosity, you can be kind, you can be aware, you can work to understand the nature of reality, yeah? To remove that deep delusion that moves you in a certain way, that leads to happiness, yeah? So that's karma. That's basically the law of karma in a very small nutshell, is working with the law of karma. It's about working with the kind of, with things in the here and now, yeah? Buddhism is incredibly practical, yeah? That's why he taught is out of compassion. So maybe, I mean, what does it feel like, for you at least, when you feel like you're alert, yeah? When you're kind to people, what starts happening in your experience? Can you remember the last time you were kind to someone? Or nice, or generous, or something? Did it feel good or not? Maybe it felt horrible. Maybe you gave away something. So, oh God, I wish I hadn't given that money to that person. Or how did it feel?
Compassionate.
Yeah, when you did something nice for someone, did you feel good or not?
Absolutely.
You felt good.
I
Yes.
started feeling more compassionate towards them.
Yeah.
Seeing a little bit of myself in them.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah. So feeling compassion towards somebody else produced a kind of. Would you say maybe some space? Was that, yeah, happier? Yeah, very good. Any more people doing anything nice for people? Yes. Softening. Oh yeah, fantastic. Yeah, and that's a nice feeling, a kind of relaxation. Softening in the body and the mind, or yeah. So if you're kind to people, then there's a kind of softening starts happening. Tension starts to fall off you. Yeah. That's not really, it's a kind of natural thing. You don't have to force it. It just happened. Yeah? Anyone? One more? Or no more? Opening your heart. Yeah. So there's a kind of expansiveness. Yeah? And that feels good. And kind of arises, I imagine it arose by itself, seemingly. Yeah. So, yeah, in a way, they're all very good examples. I mean, I think when you act with kindness, obviously you feel less boxed up. Yeah, you're less in your own. I can only speak for myself. I feel less contracted in my own little world. Yeah, I feel more like if I'm kind to people, I've got movement, some freedom of movement. Yeah, life has more color to it. Yeah, if I behave well, good karma, you might say. Things feel more alive. I feel more alive. I also feel somehow that I'm more my interaction with the world. I'm interacting with the world more, if that makes any sense. I don't know, we're always interacting with the world, but I feel like if I'm behaving well, you might say, yeah, skillfully, with good karma, I feel like there's a deeper interaction with the world, yeah? Maybe some people might call that feeling more connected, yeah? Also, I think there's somehow, if you behave in that way, some seem to have more meaning, yeah? And you sort of know the value of things more. Yeah? It doesn't slip through your fingers so much. You get a sense of people's value in the world. Yeah? It's kind of instinctive.
And there's also some kind of distancing from resonating with that negative
Yeah.
energy.
Oh, nice, yeah. Oh, very good. So, yeah, so if you behave in that way, with kindness, skillfully, intelligently, you get a kind of a buffer to the badness in the world, in a way.
It can also be a bit scary because
Yeah.
it gives you a lot of power.
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's also, I think it also has some shadow part.
Oh, yeah. Interesting. Maybe we can talk about that afterwards, but shadow to... Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. So obviously the opposite is true as well. Yeah. If you behave like a scumbag and you're like nasty piece of work, yeah. What does that feel like? I can only say from my own experience, when I've got into a whole negative train of thought about people and I feel terrible. It's like my whole world is kind of contracted, yeah? I feel shrunk, and none of us want to feel shrunk, yeah? That sense of expansiveness is missing when you behave in that way, yeah? So it's a kind of natural thing, yeah? So the Buddha taught the law of karma basically for our own benefit, yeah? For our own kind of happiness, yeah? Yes?
Sorry, I just wanted to ask, would you apply to the virtual world?
The ritual world? Virtual world?
Yeah.
Jesus.
How would it apply?
The law of karma?
No, just for example, because you're not connected to the people,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So maybe it's also just something completely toxic that actually,
Yeah.
the more you do it, the more you disconnect. That's
Yeah.
my question.
Oh, well, that's a big question in a way, but I mean, in Buddhism, actions are body, speech, and mind. So even if you're fiddling around on the internet, you're still saying things probably and thinking things. So it's just this slightly removed version, but it definitely has an effect. Great. So I just want to slip out of that question without understanding it properly, but never mind. So I just thought we'd finish by looking at some points about karma itself, yeah? I've got 10 points. 10 is good, isn't it? I know it was an accident, but I was quite happy about that. Although 2 of them are more or less the same, so it's a bit of a... But never mind. So a few points about karma, yeah? The first point is we need to be fully aware of ourselves as an active agent, yeah? We can feel like the world is happening to us. Yeah, that's a kind of normal experience, isn't it? And we get reactive, like, oh, why is it happening to me? Yeah, in fact, we're happening to the world, actually. Yeah, more or less. Yeah, we're a force of nature, and we don't often see ourselves in that way. Yeah, that kind of potency. So that's the first point. That we need to be aware of ourselves as an active agent, and then we can choose. That's basically all karma is. It's a choice. You can choose to act well, you can choose to act not well, and there'll be fruits of each way, yeah? So just to be aware of oneself in that way, yeah? Not to kind of get into this thing like, oh, it's all happening to me, yeah? These are bullet points, by the way. They're big points maybe, yeah? The second point, yeah, your thoughts are not objective reality. I mean, that might be obvious, but most of the time it's not obvious to us, at least not to me. Most of the time I experience my thoughts as the way things are, yeah? But they're not. It's not an objective reality, yeah? Your thoughts are being produced and are the result of your past karma, yeah? The past way you've seen things, the past interactions you've had with people, the past habits you've had, they all form the way you produce thoughts, and then you start living in your thoughts and you think you're in reality, yeah? Subhuti, he does a really fantastic order member, yeah? I was listening to a talk and I just got a really nice line from him, which was, yeah, we construct our reality and then live in that construction. Yeah, it's kind of obvious maybe, but it's true. Yeah, and then we react to that construction. Yeah, and then others react to our construction. We react to their construction, and then we've got a mess. We've got arguments. We've got wars. We've got all kind of madness going on. Yeah, so we all get tangled up. Yeah, and all that's to do with karma. Yeah, so we create worlds and then we live in them. Yeah, that's the way it is. So that's quite, I like to remind myself though that my thoughts are not actual objective reality. Yeah, it's a good step. The third point is similar, yeah, which is the very way we experience this particular moment is an outcome of our karma. Yeah, it's not neutral. It's the way we're experiencing this moment now, our mood, the way we perceive things, almost the way we literally see the world is not accidental. Yeah, it's an outcome of our karma. We've coloured our lenses, yeah, over decades, yeah. And this isn't to beat ourselves up. That's the whole point of karma. I can see some people like, oh. It's like, yeah, but it's supposed to be liberating. That's the whole point. You see that, and you're like, I can change that. Yeah, I can start to see things in a different way, and the world will appear. Literally, the world we see will appear differently to us. Yeah. So in a way, we need to know. It's really important. We need to know that we are actually capable of completely restructuring our experience, yeah, our consciousness, yeah, so that things happen and emerge in a very, very different way, yeah. In order to do that, we need patience and confidence, yeah, that it's going to work. That's quite a big thing, yeah. These things aren't immediate, yeah, but if you do make the effort, it will work. It's not random. That's the entire point of this whole law of karma. It's not random. It will work. It just takes time and effort, yeah. Yeah, and according to the Buddha, karma is a law. Yeah, the same way as gravity is a law. Yeah, so we can change our experience. Yeah, yeah, good. The fourth point was actually it's good to ask yourself: do I really believe that acting well will change me? Yeah, if I act skillfully, will that actually make a difference? Do I really believe that, or not really? Yeah, so it's really important. I mean, maybe it's too early. Maybe you're here for the first time and it's like, I don't know. I don't even know what he's talking about. But actually, if you're not convinced that your actions have consequences in a powerful way, positively or negative, if you're not convinced of that, you won't be able to use the law of karma in a sense. You won't be able, in a sense, to reshape yourself if that's what you want to do. Yeah. So it's worth asking oneself, even if one's been practicing for a long time, you forget. You sometimes get a bit sloppy. You think, no, you forget, do I believe this or do I not believe this? It's really important, yeah? Good. Fifth point, patience, a bit like the other one, patience and persistent effort are needed when working with the law of karma, yeah? It's the long game. It takes a long time, but it works. And the Buddha says we need the attitude of a farmer, yeah? I mean, I don't really know much about farms. I think I only saw kind of something green about 20 years after my arrival on this planet, yeah? So that's not quite true, but, you know, he said it's like you need to be like a farmer, yeah? So you plant the seed, yeah? And then there's a fruit, but you have to wait. You can't keep digging the earth up and being like, I've been practicing Buddhism for a whole year now, yeah? And I've still not completely changed and I'm not enlightened and I'm not doing this, it doesn't work, I'm gonna go on whatever it is, I'm next. I was going to be disrespectful to Wim Hof for some reason, like ice bath, but I like ice baths. Anyway, forget this. So it's not a trend, yeah, that's what I'm saying. The karma is like planting seeds, yeah? And somehow there needs to be enough faith in you that the seeds will bear fruit, yeah? So it's a traditional way of looking at karma, yeah? So you have the seeds and then you have the fruit, phala it's called, fruit, yeah? Yeah, which is why, I said it last time, which is why it's good to be around people that have been doing it for a long time and they've changed, because they can just reassure you. Yeah, I've had so many times that I thought, yeah, I'm a fully committed Buddhist, I believe this, and then a few years down the line, I'm just like, man, I'm exactly the same as I was when I began. And they're like, no, you're not actually. You were a bit of a nightmare in this respect. And I was like, oh yeah, okay, I have changed quite a lot, yeah. So you do change. Sixthly, which is a super important point, yeah, what you could call the ethical status of an action of karma in Buddhism is determined by the state of mind that that action comes from, yeah? So that's fundamental, yeah? So if you're in a terrible state of mind, you'll be doing actions that will have a certain consequence. If you're in a very positive state of mind, you'll perform actions that have very good karmic consequences. That's not quite clear. What I mean is you could do the same thing and it would be coming from two different places. So you could, which you might, you could donate 100 euros at the end of this class, yeah? And you'd be doing it out of generosity, like, this place is amazing, wow, and that's good karma, yeah? Or you could be like, oh, I'm just putting 100 euros in here and everyone sees how generous you are. I'm not sure how good that is. I mean, it's better than nothing, but do you see what I mean? Like, the state of mind, like, you want your social status to get raised by giving loads of money is one thing. Not so great. Better than nothing, but not great. But if you really give something out of your own will and generosity, that is what determines the effect of that karma on you, yeah, and your consciousness. Yeah, so it's the intention that counts, yeah? So Buddhism is an ethics of intentions and not rules, yeah? Not to say there aren't rules, there are rules in monastic situations, for example. There are little rules, but that's just to keep things working properly, yeah? It's not to obey the rules, yeah? That's not what Buddhism's about. Buddhism, the ethics comes from intentions. The reason why you're acting is important, yeah? So, yeah, I'm not sure. Anyway, maybe I won't say that. That's another point. Yeah, number 7, we touched on it before, but there's sometimes I was listening to another talk, and I hadn't actually heard it described like this, but it talks in terms of karma as the, coming from 3 doors, yeah? And those 3 doors are your body, your speech, and your mind, yeah? I quite like that, these 3 doors. This is where, so super important again, you know, actions in Buddhism are not just what you do with your body, yeah? It's what, in fact, speech is probably the most important area for us. Yeah, we're in a pretty civilized, quote unquote, society. We don't have madness going on around us. Yeah, so but we do create a load of madness with our mouth. Yeah, so speech is like super important in Buddhism. Yeah, also your thoughts. That all this conditions you, and it's all planting seeds. Yeah. Yeah, okay, this is a more traditional one, but I found it interesting. So, karma according to appropriateness of results and experiences. Basically, it's sort of saying the punishment fits the crime, yeah? Or the other way around. Say if you're super generous, you'll probably find that people are really generous with you, yeah? Or if you're super nice to people, you'll probably have a lot of friends, blah, blah, blah. Do you know what I mean? So, and it works both ways. Yeah, there's a lot of unpolitically correct examples in Buddhism, but I won't give them because we'll all get very upset, and so I won't give them. But there's a lot of examples of how the punishment fits the crime, so to speak, yeah. But I thought what was better, I was listening to a talk by Sangharakshita, who founded this order, and there was just 2 points that I thought were really helpful, yeah. When he's talking about this, yeah, he said, whatever we do to others, we are in the long run doing to ourselves, yeah? So you can think over terms of decades, you know, whatever you're doing to others, it's happening to you. You're becoming that person that you're getting, yeah, that's become, and he said, I found it more helpful the way he reversed it. He said, whatever you're doing to yourself, you are in the long run doing to others, because sometimes we can take a passive attitude towards ethics as if, well, if I just don't hurt anybody, and I just lay low, then I'll kind of be all right. But sort of saying, no, you know, whatever you're doing to yourself, even if you think you stepped out the game, you're actually, it has an effect on other people, yeah? So I thought that was really interesting, yeah? Nearly there. So the 9th thing was the time of the karma taking effect, yeah? So you plant a seed, when does it happen? When does it ripen? Yeah, that's what I was saying before. Well, it ripens dependent on many different conditions, yeah? And interestingly, Sangharakshita was saying sometimes your karma might not ripen. He was saying some people are very obsessed with this thing about karma being an iron law. You can't escape your karma. You know, people love that. Like, oh, it's going to come back to them. Yeah, it might not. It's interesting. In order for your karma in order for there to be a fruit, there needs to be many different conditions in place in yourself and in the world for that karma to actually ripen. Yeah, it's not just an iron law, which I found quite interesting. Yeah. Yeah, he said sometimes what you might call negative karma can be kind of counterbalanced, which is interesting. Yeah, and sometimes it can just fade away completely. So it's worth thinking on, because sometimes we have a very weird view of karma, you know, as if it's the be-all and end-all of everything, yeah? But it's not. All right, lastly, it gets called the priority of effect, yeah? It is normally to do with when you're dying, you know, the kind of karma, the priority of effect. But it's basically talking about what kind of karma is the most powerful, yeah? normally, to do with rebirth, but you could see it in this life as well. So which comes first? What's the most important kind of karma? Well, according to Buddhism, the most important kind of karma is what's called weighty karma, yeah? So very strong conscious volitions, yeah? Very things you've chosen to do with a very strong charged situation, yeah? Like deliberately killing somebody, yeah? That is considered a weighty karma, yeah? I had a friend of mine who I was in a study group with. He was in his 70s. He was a sniper in Britain in the Special Forces. And he killed a lot of people, like a lot of people. And he was an amazing meditator because he was a sniper. He could lie still for 3 days straight, yeah? So he in the beginning, he could really get into meditation. It was just like he'd see this red Buddha out of nowhere. He didn't know anything about Amitabha at all, yeah? At all. He'd just get this red Buddha over an ocean as well, interestingly, yeah? And he'd just be completely absorbed for like 2 hours. He wouldn't hear people coming in and out of the shrine room, nothing, yeah? But after a few months, he started to see this kind of weird demonic figure in the corner of his vision, which just started to kind of creep into his vision. And then he started getting images in his mind of like a cross thread. You know, when you know a hunter, you have a rifle with a cross thread, and like a young guy's head exploding, yeah? And that's what he'd done. And it destroyed him, yeah? He couldn't really carry on practicing. So hopefully we haven't been doing that. Hopefully not, but just to say, that's what you call weighty karma, yeah? That is going to have an effect, yeah? In the positive, meditation is said to be a weighty karma as well. Yeah? Not meditation like sometimes we're struggling and we don't know what day it is and what did they say to me yesterday and all this stuff. Meditation as in you're actually completely absorbed in a highly charged positive state of consciousness. Yeah? It's supposed to be a weighty karma, yeah? Which is interesting. Yeah, if you're in a super conscious state, you know, and you're in that on a regular basis, that's very, very weighty karma, positive karma, which I find interesting. Yeah. So we're nearly there. Yeah, the second kind of karma is sometimes called death proximate karma. Yeah. So it's the kind of mental image that might arise at the point of death. Yeah. So he gives the example, if you're a butcher, yeah, and you've been killing loads of animals, there's blood everywhere, the smell, the noises, everything like this, knives, most likely when you're dying, that probably be flavouring the images that are going through your mind, yeah? Or maybe you're an artist, maybe you're painting beautiful pictures all day, and that's the kind of images that are kind of coming through your mind. Yeah. Okay, good. Thirdly, habitual karma, yeah? So probably this is super important for us as well. Any kind of action we do on a repeated basis, yeah? It's like drops of water wearing down a stone or filling up a bucket. It might not seem like a lot. Like every day, I won't tell you what I do, but every day I do a little thing, yeah? I do something. It's like that's habitual karma, yeah? And it shapes a certain character in a certain mold, yeah? So you can work with that in terms of on a day-to-day basis. That habitual karma is a bit like how you steer the whole ship around, yeah? There's no kind of general magical transformation in Buddhism. It's a long-term process of shearing the stick, but that habitual karma is super important, yeah? I wrote too much. Anyway, to wrap it up, really, it's worth remembering the number one is weighty karma, so try not to kill anyone. That's really good, and try and meditate and get some depth in meditation. That's really good as well. Yeah, try and meditate, try and act well, habitual karma. And all of this is for a reason as well. If you follow this law, like the law of gravity, law of karma, you basically end up becoming receptive. Yeah, you become more and more malleable in your consciousness. Yeah, which is said to be the absolute bedrock of life. Yeah, experiences come first. Consciousness, mind comes first. Yeah, and you develop the kind of mind that is capable of penetrating into the truth. Yeah, you can then liberate yourself. Yeah, so that's the whole point of doing all this. Yeah, we become receptive to the truth. Yeah. So that was a lot more than I intended to say. That's all right. So brief recap. Yeah, we began looking at the Buddha's enlightenment. Saw it was a direct experience. Yeah, and not a philosophy or an idea. It was his teaching comes from an experience. Praticca samutpada. Yeah. We saw there's different layers and laws of conditionality. Yeah. physical, organic, inorganic, the mind, karma, yeah, dharma, nirma. We saw that when self-consciousness arises, yeah, self-conscious organism arises, then the law of karma comes into effect whether we like it or not. And sometimes we don't like it, but it comes into effect whether we like it or not. If we have a self-conscious mind, yeah, it's a natural law. Yeah, if we behave according to that natural law with love, kindness, wisdom, there's one kind of fruit, which is happiness, yeah, and liberation. If we behave in the opposite direction, there's suffering and misery. Yeah, so that's quite simple. The Buddha taught all of this to us out of compassion. Yeah, because he's seen us flailing around, going mad in this world and having all kind of trouble. And he says, all right, you need some help. So he taught the law of karma. Yeah. And then finally, a few points about karma. We need to be aware of ourselves as an active agent in the world. Yeah. Our thoughts are not objective reality. They're produced by our consciousness. Yeah. The very way we experience this particular moment is a result of our karma, yeah, the kind of consciousness we came into this room with. Yeah. The question, do you actually believe in this, or am I just talking a lot of rubbish and you don't care anyway? Yeah. Because if you do want to use the law of karma, then that's probably, well, according to Buddhism, that's the way you're going to end up being happy. Fifthly, patience and persistence are needed, like a farmer. Yeah, you plant a seed, it takes a while for that seed to arise. Yeah. Sixth, the ethical status of your actions are determined by the state of mind you're in. Yeah? So if you're going to be generous, and it comes from a genuine feeling, that is infinitely more beneficial for yourself than wanting to be like seen by everybody to be generous. Yeah, but there's still the same action. Then we looked at the three doors. Yeah, karma can come from your body, it can come from your speech, and it can come from your mind. Yeah, thoughts are actions and speech is actions. Yeah, the punishment fitting the crime business. Whatever you do to yourself, you are in the long run doing to others. Time of taking effect. Karma's not an iron law. Yeah, sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't, but generally it does happen. And priority of effect. Yeah, so if you do really serious stuff, that's serious, and if you really practice with some real intensity, you're meditating at real depth, you're being kind to people. You've got an altruistic life that has a very, very strong effect on your outcome in this life and according to Buddhism, your next life as well, yeah? Yeah. So actions matter. Actions have consequences and skillful actions lead to happiness. And that's a universal law that you can trust over time. Ugh. Thank you.